has occurred. We have recording. Okay. No one say anything you don't want recorded. Those of us watching the recording, thank you for watching the recording. Those of us joining us live, thank you very much for joining me live. I always appreciate it. And Michaela has joined us too. Hi, Michaela. Good to see you. Excellent to see you. There you are. Cool. Okay, so let's see. We're going to start with Carol. Carol asked a question, and I'm going to switch over to share so I can point this out here. Here we go. All right, so those of us watching the recording, Carol asked a super good question here about the negotiation analysis assignment. Go ahead, Carol. Back it up.
Thank you. So what I asked was for the final negotiation assignment, can the situation that we use on the negotiations be something that wasn't solved in one sitting? Because I have a good example, but it took several meetings in order to resolve a final agreement.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. I mean, Carol, I think that sets you up so well to do. So remember, this is so every assignment that we've done so far in the class has been what's called formative. And I know some of us know what that means and some of us don't know what it means. Formative means that like we're doing it together. I'm here to give you support. It's a process that we're working on all together. It's more about insight and like how we're grooving on it and that kind of thing. The only assignment that's really truly summative, okay, and summative is kind of the opposite. That means that it's a summation and I have to grade you on it, right? So it's like a graded thing, a summation of all the stuff that we learned in the course is this one. And when I say that, all it means is that there's a rubric, right? So far, everything that we've done in the class has been complete or not complete. Did you do it or you didn't do it? And so if you didn't do it, then I put down you didn't do it, but you have all semester, all summer to do it, right? So that's not brutal stuff, but it all adds up, and it adds up to this final paper, which is why it's worth 300 points because it's kind of like a final exam. It's like a final survey. And so, Carol, you saying that's fantastic because you'll see the rubric is like, hey, covers both sides objectively, used examples from the class discussions, right? To exceed expectations. It gets in, says both sides, covering both sides objectively, frames problem, defines goals as impetus for the strategy. So if you have a couple of occasions that this thing went on, it seems to me like you have a plethora, another big fancy word, of information to draw on, right? Does that make sense? So yes, the more the merrier, the more details the merrier. My goal, look, if you can say, hey, you know what, I've only had negotiations on cookies so far in my lifetime with my parents, and that's all you have to bring to the table. That's okay. You can do that. The question is, can you bring in what we did in the class to the negotiation? And if it turns out it's a super crazy one that's multifaceted, there's multiple parts to it, great. The more the better. Bring them on in. And like I said, no one, and I mean no one, not Brigida, not my wife, not my bosses, no one, no human being other than me will ever, ever, ever read this. Okay. So feel free to use a real one that comes from the real world. Does that answer your question, Carol, or does it not?
Yeah, no, thank you. It does answer my question. I'm not sure that, I will have used all of the teachings that's going on now successfully, but at least I can point out where I did not do it right.
No. I mean, and there's nothing to worry about that either. It's just getting into the frame, and you'll see that we do this over and over and over again. Like this is not like you've never seen this before, right? I mean, this is what we do before every single negotiation. What are my interests? What are their interests? All that kind of stuff. So that's not a problem. Don't worry about that.
Thank you.
Okay, fair. So that answers that question. Now that is interesting because that brings us to uh, tonight. We're going to talk about shadow negotiating, and also our next assignment. So next week we are not meeting. We are not having a synchronous meeting on the 6th of July, right? That's a week from today. We are not meeting. But while we're not meeting, we will still be working forward on the next thing. So that said, Rubber Mind is the next negotiation, and you'll see I set that up. It says it's due July 5th. Now, if we're not meeting on July 6th, how will we even know? It's to pace it out for us so that we have kind of a sense of do this for, the way we've done it for every single assignment so far. You do this part first, then you do the second part. So like right now, we're all probably working on, if we're still finishing up with the last negotiation on McLaurie, we're all finishing up with our self-evaluation, our reflection on another diet. I know a few of us haven't done that yet, and then doing a reflection of our own diet. Great. It's the same process over and over and over and over and over and over and over the whole summer. So it starts out with rubber mind negotiation, which we're going to talk about tonight, which is actually multifaceted, another one that's multifaceted. And I would guess in the real world, Carol, I doubt any of us have ever have really had a negotiation for a job in one sitting. I mean, I hope not. And then the next section, Brian, I have not forgotten you. I'm coming to you in 2 seconds here, because this actually comes to support what Brian wants to talk about. Uh, is the next assignment, which is the collecting no assignments, which I love. It's my favorite assignment because this one forces you to get out of the room and get out of your office and get out into the world and actually apply some of the stuff that we're talking about in the class. Which the first thing about it is we're going to figure out how to ask questions, and I will just take a look at the thing here together. How to ask questions to induce a no. To induce a no. That means I know I've already gotten a couple of email complaints sort of saying, well, I'm not very good at getting no's. Can I just get a bunch of yes? Here's the thing. The human brain, okay, is incapable of processing a negative, a not. So in other words, like if I say, okay, everybody in this room, I want you to do not think about a pink elephant. What's the first thing you do? You can't not do it, right? So no negotiation has ever occurred until somebody says no. Much like no sale has actually occurred until somebody says no. Because until somebody says no, you're just taking an order. You're asking for something and getting it. You're going back to our example of the popcorn, right? You're putting up a poster that says popcorn is $5. You have not negotiated to find out that popcorn doesn't even exist when you just say, okay, $5 for popcorn. Sounds good. You're taking an order, you're writing an order. So we're going to get out here and we're going to really push it. Now look, it's formative, right? If you can't get 10 no's, you try your best, you only got three, you're still getting a complete. Nobody's screwing anybody. You're not losing points for it. But if you want to push this and really push it as hard as you can, you're going to get out there and you're going to get 10 no's. Because once you get that 10th no, then you're going to go back in to part B. You're going to go in, you're going to pick one of the requests for which you received a no, and you're going to make that same request to the same person a second time. And I know everyone's thinking, I don't like confrontation. I don't want to confront people. It's negotiating, okay? We're negotiating. By definition, we're confronting. We're not confronting nastily, but we're confronting. We're being assertive. You cannot negotiate if you're not asserting. And that's what we're going to do. Not aggressive, but assertive. There's a difference. Have you ever seen the Holland Tunnel in New York City? Let me tell you something. If you're not assertive, you're not going to make it through the Holland Tunnel in New York City. You have to assert yourself. That doesn't mean you have to be aggressive. It doesn't mean you have to run over people. But if you're not like, it's my turn, go, you're not going to go through. I always laugh around here because, everybody's like, they can't like merge into traffic. You have to get a golden invitation to say, hey, can I come in? Yeah, come on in. Are you sure? Yeah, come on in. Bam, now we have a traffic accident because everybody smashed into everybody. Holland Tunnel would not work. And you just see it, bam, next, next, next. I used to drive back and forth to my office on Wall Street on a Honda Nighthawk on a motorcycle through the Holland Tunnel. Let me tell you something. You have to be assertive. You got to go. It's time for you to go. You go. Part B. Now you go to the site. You're going to do it. If you receive another no, you're going to make the same request to the same person a second time. If you receive another no, wait until later and make the same request yet a third time. Write down what that person says now. Pick one of the requests for which you received a no, and you're going to ask the person who said no, what would have to happen for you to say yes? That is what we're doing in this next negotiation. That is exactly what Rubber Mind is all about. And that is exactly a similar situation to what happened to our good friend and fellow companion of negotiating, Brian. Brian, would you like to jump right in here and tell your story to whatever degree you wish?
Yeah, hey everyone. I do negotiations as part of my job. I'm a project manager for a construction company. So obviously I'm taking this course to get better at that skill. But I had an interesting experience Friday that I sent Brad an email about. I had to negotiate with one of our owners on a job that wanted a credit for some work that they didn't like. So I went through, prepared everything, thought I had all my, I's crossed, things like that. And it was a Zoom meeting. There's probably about 15 people on there, and not a single person turned on their camera. So on top of it being on Zoom or Teams, whatever it was, there's always that somebody talks, then you wait a second to see if anybody else is going to respond. So, in the areas where I was going to try and use pauses intentionally to get the other team to think, it didn't have the same effect because everyone's just naturally used to just waiting. So I ended up having to try and pull them in more and kind of ask them, does that make sense? Does everyone understand? Does everyone agree? To try and judge, what everybody else was thinking, since I couldn't see any facial reactions. So, no, it was just different and interesting. So I just wanted to share that with Brad. Still, negotiation, we didn't finish it, but it's still moving in a good direction. So to be continued.
The facial aspects, and especially now that we've gotten into micro expressions and we're realizing that we all have, you realize that every single one of us now has a superpower. Like you realize that. Oh, Kevin joined us. Hey, Kevin, how's it going? And Lauren has too, and so has Chris, and so is Zach. Good to see you all. Uh, so you realize we all have a superpower now, right? You can read micro expressions, which is great because some of us were totally didn't buy into this. Like Cole told me straight out, like, I don't really buy this. I think this is a bunch of bullcrap. But then did it. And then it was like, oh, actually, this is true. Like, you can actually see that. Right, Cole? You were kind of like, eh. But then you were like, oh, wait, actually, did I get that
So
right? I think that was Cole who said that.
yeah,
Uh,
so one thing I'll mention, I put some links in for last week, and the behavior panel talks a lot about this, the and finding the baseline of people, so you understand that just because I raise my eyebrow doesn't mean that it's always this. It's they said you first have to start with the baseline, and I can share those. I don't know if they'll have it in the chat for you, but you have to assess what the person's baseline is before you ascertain that ascribe a behavior beyond those standard seven.
And so this kind of funny aside, just to show you what a maniac I am. Back in the days when the COVID stuff happened, and in 22, they told us Penn State we could go back to school. We had to go back to school, but we all had to wear masks. And I said I'm not wearing a mask. I'm not doing it. And they said, well, you have to wear a mask. I said, no, I don't have to wear a mask, and I'm not going to. And so what I realized was that you didn't have to wear one outside. And so I made a deal with my students. I said, look, here's the deal. I'll record all the content, but we're going to have class outside if you're cool with that. If we have 100% that want to do that, we'll have our class outside. Now, this is Penn State, right? So we had it all winter long through December and January when it's minus 5 degrees outside in the snow. And you know what? Unanimously, every one of my students said, we'd rather go and meet you outside without a mask on. Because when they first told me I was going to teach a negotiating class with masks on, I said, the only way I'm going to teach a negotiating class with masks is if I'm allowed to issue sidearms to each one of my students. Because technically, if you're negotiating with a mask on, it's called armed robbery and you have a sidearm. They told me they didn't like that answer. Anyway, long and short was you're right. And Brian, you're so right. Now, this is interesting. And this is a perfect segue into what we want to talk about tonight. Because in addition to not seeing you, what if we do see you, but we don't see what you're doing? And so we're going to break into what's called the shadow negotiation, which is often referred to as the reach around. Although I read somewhere on a dictionary online somewhere, my older son, my 23-year-old said, don't say that, Dad, it's dirty. And I said, what do you mean it's dirty? And he said, it's dirty. Don't say that. I said, they say it about, it means reach around to the person that is you're the boss above you, the way around you, whatever. He get, Dad, don't look it up on your computer at work because it's dirty and you're going to get fired. So he showed me on his phone. I'm like, oh my God. It is dirty, so be careful. Don't say it out loud, but that's what we used to call it, meaning like you're negotiating, but you're negotiating around the negotiation, and we're going to get into that right now.
So I'll add one more thing to that. There's
Yes.
a guy I watch all the time called Mark somebody on Wall Street Truth Bombs, and his big thing is shadow data, and that's the
Ah.
data behind the data. So once it becomes, you know, we elevate it to regular norms, then you're all good. So
There we go. Exactly. All right, here we go. All right, now let's see. Can everybody see my thing? I actually am gonna turn off my video while I do this slide because there's slides and there's stuff here. So just, I'm still here. So hang on with me. Okay, here we go. All right, first of all, no class next week, 7/6. Got it? Nope, no class, 7/6. Next time will be 7/13. That's when everything's due. 7/13, that's when we're going to see. And that's when I'll give you all the spoilers for Rubbermind. I think we're going to love Rubbermind because it is, whereas maybe McLaury was a little esoteric because not that many of us have to buy 3D printers on a regular basis. And certainly OBS is esoteric because it's Shark Tank on TV, with Mr. Wonderful and all that stuff. This one is getting a job. Okay. And we've all had to get jobs and we all have to get more jobs and we all have to interview people for jobs. So this is like right down home, right? Okay. We went through negotiation analysis rubric. The rubric's there. Please, if you're watching this video and you don't understand something in it, please email me as soon as you can. Like, I don't get it. And I promise I will respond to you instantaneously. And that, of course, is negotiation analysis, which is due on the 11th of August. Okay. That's when I put in my grades right after that. All right. We talked about the collecting nose assignment, and it's a pretty straightforward one. You got to get out of the building. You got to ask them. And remember, people, you're not negotiating until somebody says no. Okay. So if you're just writing down yeses, you're taking orders. You're not negotiating. All right. So A, B, and C went through this process until you find somebody who finally says, no, nope, nope, nope. Okay. Well, what will it take for you to give me a yes? And that's critical. In fact, let me just mention this. When you ask that, when you get to that point, I can tell you this right now, you're much more likely to get a yes if you give a reason for the thing that you're asking for. Now, I don't know if that's good or bad because maybe it'll make it harder for you to get 10 no's. But this excellent study here, it was Charowitz, Langer and Charowitz, right? This is actually in your reading. When you make a request, they did this amazing study with thousands of people that if you give a reason, the level of compliance goes up exponentially. So in other words, they said, okay, they went up to this copy machine and they asked, hey, excuse me, I'd like to do 5 pages here. Can I use the Xerox machine first? If they didn't give a reason for it, the compliance came in at about 60%. As soon as they gave any reason at all, even a BS reason, like, hey, because I'm in a rush, or because I have to make some copies. I mean, obviously you're making copies, you're using the copy machine, right? Even a BS reason, the compliance went from a 60% compliance all the way up to in the 90s. That is crazy. And this brings us to where we were just getting done last week. We were talking about what the hell is a win-win negotiation. It sounds awfully cliche. And it is cliche. Unfortunately, it is often perverted with the word compromise. Okay. It's conflated or perverted to the word compromise. It is not compromise. Okay. Compromise means one or both parties is pissed off. Okay. They're not happy. They're not satisfied. They are dissatisfied. They want to be satisfied. What does somebody do who wants to be satisfied? They try to become satisfied. Okay. That's the opposite of win-win. It's not an even split. Okay. It's not satisfaction. It's not like, well, I'm happy. No, that's not it. And it's not the relationship. Although the relationship is important. Let's take a look at exactly what win-win looks like. Okay. And what integration means. Integrative negotiation. That is what we're doing. So we'll start with here are the ways to get it. First, you got 6 different ways of doing this. First, always have the abundance mentality. We saw firsthand what the opposite of that is. It's called fixed pie, right? We went into McLaury, many of us. I looked at the numbers, okay? So I actually had a chance to see, they finally sent me the numbers. They're in Greece, or not Greece, Vienna right now. But before they left, they sent me the numbers. I think our highest printer price was like 100,000. 100,000. And I said, why? I wonder why. Well, part of it is because AI kind of sucks, right? I mean, it lied. I started out, and I showed you what my response was. I started out at $550,000 a printer. That's what I wanted. And I've seen them go in person when it's person on person up to a million, 1.5 million for printers. Because what the joke was, There was no fixed pie. There was no budget. Okay. There was a semblance of what other people are paying for this thing and some bigger companies are getting for this thing, but there was neither side of the negotiation had any limitation. And in fact, it looked like the crazy professors, and this is what really happened in real life, had no idea how to start a business and had no idea how to price a business. And the price that they were asking was going to put them out of business in 6 months. That's insane. So there really literally was no, so got to get rid of that fixed pie. Don't assume there is a fixed pie. Abundance means there is much more there. Maybe not just in a price, but in many other ways. Provide the information and ask the diagnostic questions. If you don't provide the information, now that doesn't mean give your reservation point. It doesn't necessarily mean use your BATNA as some tactic. But if you don't at least tell people what's most important to you, how would you ever know? If I don't tell you that this is the price is going to put me out of business in 6 months, how would you know it? You wouldn't know. So you have to ask the questions to find out. This is an interesting one because Brian was also talking to me about this last week. Taking things apart and then putting them back together. You unbundle, you add issues, and you repackage. And with this next negotiation with Rubbermind, I want us to think in terms of what are the trade-offs. And let me show you this in a sec. So identify, create value creating trade-offs. What can I trade to get more for this? Let me show you what I mean in that. Then also, remember, when we're done, okay, first thing is you want to say, are there contingencies in there? Have we added things into our negotiated agreement that say, here's our agreement. And by the way, if you do this, this, and this, you'll also get that, that, and that. Because if you don't do this, this, and this, you won't get that, that, and that. That's called a contingency. Anytime you add a contingency, anytime you add contingencies, you've added the value. There's no question you've added the value. And by the way, it's just a bonus, right? And by the way, every month, if you hit this much sales, you get this much more. Always put that in. And if you don't, then you don't. And that was what we were really fishing for with OBS. It's like, hey, the bottom line of both people, they didn't want to be in the deal. They wanted to get out of the deal as fast as possible. And so the provisions would be stuff like, hey, if you hit this number by the end of the year and pay me $10,000, you can buy me out of here and get me the hell out of your life. That's what we were fishing for. And guess what? Rubbermind again. And this is what I was saying before. At the end of each negotiation, and I saw all of this, almost every single one of us at McGlory did this. It was great. It was really this group, we have a great group this semester. So I can't wait I'm cherry picking now and putting people with people because we have 3 more negotiations with each other. I felt bad about doing the AI because I love the idea of us interacting with each other, but it was such a novel, crazy, interesting thing. That's why I asked if you wanted to do it before we did, and we did. So anyway, we're all going to be world famous in Vienna, Austria this week. That's exciting. But once we're done, you're done with the negotiation, and here we are, we're done. And now, again, you're going for a job, okay? You have this negotiation. You've got a deal, right? Everybody's happy. You haven't even worked for each other yet. You're still on the honeymoon. You love each other. You want to kiss and hold hands. Guess what? Now is the time. Now is the time to go back in because you have a new BATNA. And you say, you know what? Is there a way we can get more? And if you want to be cool about it and be like, hey, I don't want it to look like I'm selfish. Okay, fine. Why don't you do it this way? Hey, is there a way we can get more for you in this without me losing anything? Maybe there's more in here we haven't even thought about. And you're telling me, again, that you wouldn't spend an extra 25 minutes negotiating to get an extra $50,000 next year? Or a better health plan? Or a closer commute? Or what have you? I know we would. So I want to see everybody go back in. Now, here you go. Here's the deal. I want you to see this is a perfect example of the win-win. And you don't have to answer out loud. You can just do this. You can do this rhetorically to yourselves, just like we did with the lily pads. Suppose you have 2 heirs. They've been left in equal shares of an estate that contains exactly one object, a very valuable painting. What options are available to them? And I know I can list at least 8. How can you divvy this up? Well, think about it. Let's see. I know we're thinking sell the thing, cut it in half. You can have it for an hour, and I can have it for an hour. It'd be at your house and then at my house. We can find some mutual place and put it there so nobody owns it, but everybody owns it. Okay, so watch this. Okay, let's go through them. Here they are. Ready? Number one, first obvious one is cut the baby in two, right, Solomon? Okay, the great Solomon. Here we go. You get the legs, and I get the wings. That's one way to do it. Very obvious. Second one, haha, you can do a lottery. Always a lottery, right? Hey, okay, pick a number between 1 and 8. 6. Perfect. I get it. You do the lottery, okay? We can do the rotation. Okay, it's going to be in Janus, right? You're going to be in Hades during the summer months and in heaven during the winter months, right? Okay, that's we can do the rotation. It stays in yours for Mondays and Wednesdays, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays it stays in my house. We can do common ownership. Okay, hell, it's not going to go in your house, not going to go in my house. We're going to find a museum and put it in the museum, or even better, you know what we can do? Let's just burn the damn thing. We'll burn it. You'll get 0. I'll get 0. Detente. There you go. Number 6, sell the painting. Okay, you know what? Don't burn it. Let's sell it. Take the money and we'll cut it in half. We sell it for $10. You get 5, I get 5. Number 7 is the compensation. And this is where we're getting very close to an integrative solution. Hey, I'll pay you for the exclusive possession. Okay, I'll rent it from you. Okay, we own it together. I have 50% equity, and so I'm going to give you $5 a month to keep it. Okay, so this is very close, though. This is very close to integrative, but not purely integrative. Now, I want everyone to follow this one. Okay, number 8. This is the perfect example of where I want us to go with Rubbermind and integration. Here we go. We're going to unbundle the entitlement. Here we go. One heir gets exclusive enjoyment of the painting, after which the painting goes to a museum who pays the second heir now for the right to acquire it later. I know a lot of us are like, what the hell are you talking about, Brad? Are you crazy? Okay, no, seriously, this is how it works. It's called horse trading. Okay, it's horse trading. One heir gets exclusive enjoyment of the painting, and after which the painting then goes to a museum who will pay the second heir now for the right to acquire it later. So what you've done there is you've horse traded, you've log rolled across.
Question real quick, Brad.
Yes, go ahead. Who's saying that?
When you say after which,
Yes.
do you mean upon death or
No, no. Well, it's up to you. It's up to you. That the fact that it's put into the provision that it added another level of complication, but at the same time, it added value that literally didn't exist. It's like the popcorn. In other words, you're going to pay for it later for use of it now. Or the way we put it with the popcorn, I'm going to get as much popcorn as I want because I'm only going to use less cups. Does that make sense? Like, does that
Yeah,
jump for you?
I
Does
think
that click?
so. Yeah,
Is
I
that
think so.
is it clicking for everybody, or is there any disconnects? Because just let me know. I don't want to go any further unless we get this. Okay. All right, Michaela. It's somebody raise their hand. Just shout out because I can't really read the things. If somebody has something they want to say, just go ahead.
So I guess so
Fine.
let's say me and my sister. So I keep it for my life. Once I die, it goes to her.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Just
Oh,
Michaela, that's exactly what you said. Right. Or whatever specified time it is after I turn 65 or at the end of this year or when I get that loan or when I sell my house or when I get a new job. Whatever that specificity is does not that part's that doesn't matter part. The part is that it's written into it that something happens, a contingency occurs, and when that contingency occurs, that's when something else happens. Does that make sense? Ronnie, are you following that one? Does that click?
no,
Yeah,
that
it's
makes
making
sense.
a lot more sense for me too.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so stop me if it doesn't. Or shoot me an email if you think about it later and you have a couple of bourbons and decide that didn't make any sense. Shoot me an email, okay? Because I really want to make sure this is clear. I'm going to say it one more time. One heir gets exclusive enjoyment of the painting. So, I get the whole painting for some kind of period of time. We put a contingency in there. After that contingency, the painting then will go to a museum. And this is the key part. who's going to pay the second heir now for that thing later. See, that doesn't actually exist. Do you understand that that part doesn't exist? It's going to happen later after some specified occurrence, which you're getting paid for which now. Should I play the Jeopardy music? I think Jeopardy just ended. It's almost time for Wheel of Fortune. I could play the Wheel of Fortune music. I think I could do that. All right, we're going to come back to that. Think about it. A good negotiator will have thought in advance about information they don't want to disclose and will have decided how to deal with requests later. Very important. And here we go into shadow. That comes from a great book, by the way. Getting to Yes, fantastic book. And the sequel is Getting Past No. Also, we'll brief that whole book later. All right. Questions. Rule number one, you got to know why you're in the room. Okay. Why are you in the room? Number two, you got to make sure you're negotiating with somebody who can and will negotiate with you. Number three, the interest always drives the positions. How do we find the interest? We ask the diagnostic questions. We're always going to unbundle. We're going to add issues. We're going to add things. We're going to come up with things. We're going to create. We're going to make stuff up. We're going to do what we always do on a regular daily basis. We're going to make stuff up because that way we're going to identify value creating trade-offs that didn't exist. That's called synthesis. That's what we mean when we say, what's the difference between synthesis and analysis? Analysis, you're just looking at what's there. Synthesis is we're looking at a couple of things and we're making new stuff up based on the old stuff. So we define the product. We're always polite. That's always a good thing. It only happens with a series of small agreements that get bundled together. If we get emotional, fine. We talked about this before. We work as a team and we play to each other's strengths. If you want to gain, help the other person gain if you can. Always huge. And rubber mind is where we're going to go next. And this is the story of this actually occurred to me in real life. The interesting thing about shadow negotiating is that oftentimes we think that we are more transparent than we actually are. That we think that because we're there and we represent something, everybody 100% gets what we're all about and what we're doing. And this actually comes right from the reading for today, the illusion of transparency. It occurs when negotiators believe they're revealing more than they actually are. They think that others have more information about them when they actually don't. You can't be afraid to give into the information. You got to give over some information. Negotiators consistently overestimate the transparency of their objectives. That's key. Now, in this negotiation, it's all about a company. It was my company that we were negotiating with, taking on an illustrator, actually an animator who was going to do the animating. And of course, when you're starting a company from scratch, the scariest, and Brigitte will tell you this story also, the scariest part in the world is when you go from your couple, three, four, five co-creators to all of a sudden having to hire somebody from outside. And wow, everything gets wacky then. So the deal of it is, right? Remember, this is what we're going to say. We're looking for a strategy map. We're going to figure all this stuff out. That's the negotiation analysis. Okay. We're going to do this for every single negotiation. And remember that some issues are going to be, you're going to both want the same thing. In other words, you both want the highest price for this thing. Okay. Some of them we're going to be able to trade off. We're going to figure out some way of trading into something into the future, something that didn't exist. We're going to create. And then there's still going to be a couple where you absolutely want the exact opposite of the other person. It's going to happen. But you know what's going to find? You're going to find out if you have 8 issues, maybe 2. 2. So that means 6 issues you could do something with, and maybe only 2 you're going to end up somewhere near in the middle. The key of all this, though, and what I want to talk about now is shadow negotiating. Now, in this case, we're beginning to take on the roles of proxies. As we go further into this class, but our last negotiation, we will be full on 100% proxies. Why? Because that feeds us into the next negotiating class, if you're in the certificate program, which is complex negotiations, multi-party negotiations, where instead of being a proxy, you are a proxy, and at the same time, your proxyship is liquid. And that changes everything. But for right now, we're taking on becoming proxies, which means we have rules. And you're going to find, and this is the rule of negotiating and the rule, a really, really good rule of multi-party negotiating. There are only two. And if you only get this out of this class, and if this hits home with you, fantastic. I'll feel like I was successful as a negotiating instructor. There are only two kinds of meetings you will ever be in for the rest of your lives. Two kinds, distinctly different. There are two kinds of meetings. The first kind of meeting is what is called a campfire. Okay. A campfire meeting is the kind of meeting where everyone is basically on the same page. Nobody gives a crap about who each other person is. It's not important. We're not looking for Rolexes. We're not looking for what's your pedigree. We're all standing around a campfire. We're eating around the campfire. We're sharing stories around the campfire. You know, AA, I've been to AA a bunch of times. My sister was in and out of the program. And it's that's like that, right? I mean, nobody cares. Nobody talks about who you are. It's just we're all here to help each other. There's no hierarchy. In fact, that's kind of what I've tried to set this class up as. Okay. That's why it's all formative at this point. We don't have to worry about competing against each other. Let's just throw the ideas out there. Huge. Every time you can turn a meeting into one of these, it's a good thing. The other kind of meeting, I said there's two kinds. One's called a campfire. The second kind of meeting, and everybody now knows what I'm talking about, is called a water hole. Okay, there's a picture I took in the Middle East. This is a water hole. A water hole is like every company meeting you've ever been in, every academic meeting you've ever been in. You're all standing around the water hole. All the tigers stand next to the tigers. All the elephants stand next to the elephants. All the zebra. Don't be a zebra and walk up to the lions because they will eat you. Okay, they will eat you on the spot. Every corporate meeting, right? I love American Psycho. I don't know if you ever saw that one. All the people with the Rolexes sit next to the Rolexes. All the people with the embossed business cards with the good embossing sit next to the people with the good embossing. This is a terrifying situation, but it's the way it works. The shadow negotiation is how you take this meeting and turn it into this meeting. How is it possible that you take people out of this thing and move them? What we're talking about here is shadow negotiation. There's only really three different moves. One's called a power move, one's called a process move, one's called an appreciation move. And this is in the reading. Great reading here. If you have a chance to read it, fantastic. You should. It talks about how shadow negotiation is most obvious when participants hold unequal power and somehow are able to proxy. The power moves, which we call in the sneaky tricks, and that's why we call them sneaky tricks, not dirty tricks, okay? Because we all do this. Incentives, pressure tactic, using allies, these are classic feather ruffles. This is a feather ruffle, okay? I'm ruffling your feather because I am using a power move on you. Creating value, making it visible, these are power moves. Process moves, same thing. Shaping the negotiation, changing the times, moving people around, making it always be in one place. Also, feather ruffling, changing the agenda. I'm going to give you a stick figure story of this in just a couple seconds. Feather ruffling, okay, that's what this is. Appreciation moves is just the flip side of it, okay? It's the flip side. And what do we say? What are the two sneaky tricks? Feather ruffling and ingratiation, right? Okay. We're going to have you save face. We're going to make good cookies for you after work. We're going to talk to you after work. It's an appreciation move. This is called shadow negotiating. Like I said, I'm going to give an example in 2 seconds. Now, the key to all of this thing, the key to not getting sucked in is by writing down your value matrix, using the checklist I gave you last week, using the negotiation analysis, having it all written down. What is your BATNA? Brigitte, you probably share that. You want to share the link to the video you showed me to everybody in the chat. If you take a look at the chat, Brigitte will show you this is a brilliant one because this is a guy who had a negotiation who knew exactly what the non-negotiables were. He knew what his reservation point was. He knew what his baton was. He knew these things before he went into a negotiation that could have very well turned into a shadow negotiation and kicked his ass. But because he knew exactly what those things were, guess what? He walked out of a job because he said, screw this. I'm not negotiating that. Okay. Like the story I told a while back about the person asking the other person to sleep with him for $1 million. Now we know what you are now. We're just haggling for a price. Okay, that's exactly what that's about. Now, let me just stop the share for 1 sec and turn my video back on. There I am. Yeah, ha. Okay, I'm going to tell the stick figure story now, real quick. Have that all of us heard of Yoplay? Have you ever heard of Yoplay? Okay, so remember, I'm always telling you little stories. I try to tell you little teeny stories, but this one is a multi-million dollar story. So I made a multi-million dollar negotiation in this particular one. Not bragging, but it was a little bit bigger. So there's come like more pieces to it, kind of like Carol was talking about. It was multi, occasions. It wasn't just one. But I'm going to try to boil it down into a stick figure, a story. So it comes from the 1990s, 1996 and 7, when Yoplay. Okay, so Yoplay was this company that came out of nowhere. Okay, they're in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. Dannon was the big dairy player in the world. It was Dannon yogurt, Dannon cheese, Dannon everything. They took everything. Well, this little group of French, basically French group called Sodial North America Corporation, decided they were going to take on Dannon. They wanted to kick Dannon's butt. They wanted to take the number one role against in the market share in the United States in dairy. And so they actually put together a consortium with a Chinese group that had a bunch of dairy connections, and they decided we're going to go head to head with Dannon in the United States. I'm going to take this tiny little teeny weeny bit of credit for making Yoplay beat Dannon. So my company was Packaging Network, as you know, and I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share back over here, and I've got pictures. I've got pictures, cool pictures. All right, here we go. Let's take a look here at this thing. Okay, continue to share. We got that. I'm going to get some video back. There we go. All right, I even have video. I have some couple little videos. All right. So we said before, okay, the no thing. What's this whole no thing all about? And what's this shadow thing about? So I even made a stick figure for us here. Here's a picture of me pretending to be a secret agent. Okay. Why? Because I thought it looked like a shadow. Okay. And here's my stick figure. Okay. That's a ghost. If it doesn't look like a ghost, I mean it. As I said, oftentimes we refer to these things as the reach around. Be careful saying that in mixed company. The shadow negotiation, another word we need to consider when we get involved in the process of negotiating, because it's not a negotiation about what's going to be negotiated. Instead, it's not about what is substantive. Instead, it's the negotiation about how the negotiation is going to proceed. It concerns, at the minimum, here's my list. It is going to concern who will have influence and power. It will say what is acceptable behavior. It will say, will the negotiation be adversarial or will it be cooperative? It will say who is included or excluded from the negotiation. And this negotiation is basically it's the creation of a social contract, right? And it frames and it guides the substantive in the negotiation. If you fail, and this is why there's sneaky tricks, not dirty tricks, if you fail to engage or fail to successfully manage the shadow negotiation, you're going to lose out. Now, what happened was this. These two little teeny weeny companies, Hotel Bar, which was outside of New York City, Keller's, which is outside of Philadelphia, and this ginormous big player called Yoplay, wanted to come in and take over from Dannon. Unfortunately, these two little companies are little teeny companies, okay? And they're little teeny companies in little teeny networks and little teeny neighborhoods and little teeny towns where everybody knows everybody, and the power play is pretty standard. The manager is in charge. The president pretty much does what the manager says. The people who work in the town who go to the same church as the manager are the advertising agency for the company, are the accountant for the company. The people who now they all go to the same schools. Their kids go to the same schools. They're all the same bake sales. This is this teeny little company. It's been here for over 100 years. And this ginormous, huge company wants to buy this town. You see this town? This is called Harleysville, Pennsylvania. Do you even see a stop sign here? There's no stop sign here. That's how small this town is. And here is the church. You see this church? The general manager goes to this church. You see the church? That's the brick building. Do you see the white building? You see that white building? Guess what? That's the town's advertising agency. Okay. They're right next to each other. Okay. So the general manager's kids and the general manager go to this church. Who also goes to this church? Who's there at the same bake sales? Exactly. Hey, ever hear this one? Did you ever hear that one? We're Beatrice. That's who the company was, funding YoPlay International, and they were this Sodial North America Corporation, Fromage Solution. They're from French. This is the company that came in and bought, okay, that town. Now, the second branch. So Keller's already had a pretty dedicated service, a dedicated customer base. In fact, any of us from the Philadelphia area already know Keller's. You say it all the time. Another brand they wanted to buy, which was kind of packaged at the same place, was called Hotel Bar. It was not doing as well. It was losing some connection with its old customers, uh, partly because it was losing relevance. You see, Hotel Bar, when we did we asked around and tried to get some relevance to the name Hotel Bar. When you ask, hey, what's a hotel bar? Most people would say it's a bar in a hotel. Okay. But it's actually very important because in the 1800s, when this brand started, the only way you could buy butter was in a tub. You go to a restaurant and you're like, I'd like some butter on my toast. And somebody comes over with this gigantic tub and has like an ice cream scooper and takes a scoop out and throws it on your plate. And now you have some butter. Fancy schmancy hotels in the late 1800s they said, hey, if they can put bread in a way of slicing it into like a loaf, can't we put butter in a loaf? And you have a nice little silver little knife. And so at your table would be this nice little long loaf of butter called a hotel bar of butter, and you have your little silver knife, and you cut yourself off a nice little slice so that way everybody doesn't have to stick their knife in your on your plate and take out from your scoop. That's where this came from. It was a high-priced, expensive, elegant. So they came to us and they asked us. We were a little bit well known at that point, and I was a little bit well known. And they came out of nowhere, this big corporation, and they said, "Hey, we've seen some of your packaging design and some of your awards and that kind of stuff, and we're real interested in you helping us redevelop this thing." Problem was, the guy who contacted me was this guy named Jean-Michel Duval, and he came from France. He came from this big corporation that just bought these little corporations. And I meet him, and when I meet him at the first meeting, I realize this guy's from France, and nobody in this town speaks French. And this guy doesn't speak very much English. And I do speak French because I've lived in Paris, I've lived in France. So I immediately started speaking to him in French, not to be like, not that I was some fancy schmancy trying to hold something over anybody's heads, but just to be nice to the guy. The guy was away from home. He didn't know anybody there. Nobody would, at least try to speak French with him. And I did. So we hit it off. And this guy is all about butter, right? Look at his resume. This guy's a heavy hitter being sent in. The reason was because they wanted to take care of Keller's, but rebrand or somehow fix what's happening with Hotel Bar Butter because their sales are flat. So this is what the negotiation looks like. And part of this shadow negotiation is to also realize who's really running the show. So we got the plant manager and his friends, the two friends of his from the place next door, that have been with them for a long time. And now this new person from France, Jean-Michel Duval. Then who else do we have? Well, we've got the VP of sales from Keller, who we've got me, the negotiator. We've got Gary, the president. We've got Jean-Michel Duval. All of a sudden, he is going to flip sides here. And let me just show you what happens. So what we have now, I make friends with him because I speak French. Turns out I start talking to him and he's real interested in surfing. And I'm like a professional surfer, a professional swimmer. And I'm like, hey, I can teach you how to surf. It turns out he's from Brittany, on the northwestern coast of France, and he's always wanted to learn how to surf, and he never did. So I make a point of being friends with him, and you say, okay, well, why would you do that? Well, what that means is I'm going to be doing package design. Who was doing package design before? The advertising agency. Who did they make friends with? Walt, the plant manager. Who's the new person in charge? The money, right? I may not know anything about this particular company. I worked on Wall Street, so I know how a capital infusion works. I know the people with the money run things, and I knew immediately what the right thing to do here was. So let's take a look though at the negotiation. So I take him out, I take him surfing, we make friends, I go to his house, comes over to my house, I meet his kids, I meet his wife, uh, et cetera, et cetera. But let's break this thing down the way we'll be breaking down every negotiation from here on out. What do I want to not end up doing? What's important to me? That I not get run around and be asked to do a million different free revisions of package designs because the ad agency now realizes I'm the new guy and they're close to Walt. And so they're going to make lots of bumps in the road for me because they want to get all of the graphic design and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, okay, fair enough. I don't want to get run around. What is Jean-Michel? What's important to him? What's his most important thing? Success of sales, right? Here he comes. He's been a head honcho, heavy hitter from France, a headhunter. You want him to come in here and chop off some heads and get this thing working. One thing, if they're going to run me around, I want a damn good down payment. Okay. I want to make sure they're going to pay me good and pay me good. Does he care about that? Coming from a big, humongous corporation of that size, he doesn't care about money. Money means nothing to him. He wants to keep his job. What do I want? I want a contract because not only do I want the package design, I want all of the physical folding carton manufacturing. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of that for me, but I want that because the one thing as a package design company that also manufactures packages, you have to know your bread and butter is the annuity, right? It's you get a contract to make 50,000 boxes this year, and then it auto renews 50,000 next year, 50,000 the next year. You can only do so many graphic designs, right? So the next thing is he worried about his budget? Not really. They're like, go fix this, Jean-Michel. Go fix it. Do I want to keep my job? I own my company pretty much. So at that stage of the game, that didn't really make much sense. He's super homesick. That's what really is interesting to him. I also realize that a friend in need is a friend indeed. I get how that works. That's important. But friendship is also important. I mean, these guys are really cool guys. He's a fellow surfer, guys from France. We have lots to talk about. We get along great. The confidence of what's going on here, yeah, that's got to be the most important thing, really. That I mean, that's right up there, right up at the top. So here I am. This is my promised video. Here he is. Here he is learning how to surf. I take him down. It's like 35 degrees in the water in New Jersey. Here he is falling over on himself. And then here's me. This is me and him. I actually took him out and I'm showing him how to surf behind the in the wake. That's my surfboard. And I don't know if you can recognize what's in the background there, but I actually took him to the mouth of the Delaware and here where the oil farm is. And there we are teaching him how to surf behind a boat on this Delaware. Anyway, you may say that shadow negotiating it looks like this, right? It's the secret cabal. It's the secret. It's never like that. Okay. I could definitely tell you that the advertising people were evil. They were evil and they did everything they could. In fact, they said, Brad, I think we can really help you with your graphic design by what you should do. Have any of us heard of color forms? Do you remember color forms from when we were kids? That they'd show you a picture and then they literally asked me to come up with a bunch of different graphics, cut them out, bring a blank blue box, and then they and the managers would cut them out and try putting them all over the box and do graphic design that way. That's what they said. They actually said that. That's insane. They wanted to do focus groups. Focus groups are crazy expensive. I don't know if you know this, but these things back then they were like $15,000 a pop for each one of these things, and they give you terrible information. They wanted to do surveys, also gives you terrible information. We actually, as far as I know, we're the first people that ever did this. This was 1996, and my dad invented this thing called the point of purchase intercept. And what we did was we went to a bunch of different Acmes. That's the actual Acme we went to. We observed who was buying hotel bar. It was pretty obvious to see. It was the blue box, right? Who's got the blue box? Wait till they come out of the store. Bring a couple of interviewers with us. Wait till they come up and say, "Hey, I understand you just bought some hotel bar butter. Is that what you buy now?" Yes. We did 100 different interviews at 3 different stores. They came out and I said, "Hey, I see you bought Hotel Bar. Can I just ask you 2 quick questions? Because I have a theory I would like to disprove. First is, can you tell me what's on the package?" Now, remember, the advertising agency wanted us to redesign the whole package. They did focus groups showing that, oh, we should put cows on here. We should change the color. We should make it orange. We should make it yellow. Doing this at point of purchase intercept, I said, "Can you tell me what's on this package?" Do you know not one person could tell me what was on the package. They just knew it was the blue package. They got the blue one. And I said, here's the second part of the point of purchase intercept. Can you tell me why you bought that? Open question, right? Why'd you buy that? You realize there were only 2 answers? Two. One was because 80% said because it's what my mom used to buy. Okay. It was emotional. We grew up with that. That's the kind we always had. 20% said it was on sale. That was it. So, two types of benefits. One was emotional, one was financial, and that was it. And so we put a coupon on it. I said, Jean-Michel, we don't really need. Let me tell you the results. Here's my results. Si leur mère l'a fait, ou si c'est bon marché. It either my mom bought it.
Si leur mère l'a fait, ou si c'est bon marché.
It was on sale. And so what happened was we put a coupon on it. We had a very happy Frenchman who was super happy. And as a result, the shadow negotiation. Why? Because I had a direct channel, a reach around to the guy who was making the decisions, and I was able to get good, clear information to him to make a good decision. So sales went up, up, up. Ha ha ha. And then, of course, that's me after I retired. Another stick figure for you. Again, the negotiation came down to figuring out the analysis of all the items that are on here. And this is what I'm telling everybody to do for Rubbermind. Write down in order of your priority. Now, what's your priority? I made it easier for you for Rubbermind, right? Now you don't have to worry about being yourself or not being yourself. The numbers, the actual numbers are next to that. So don't get caught up in, oh, well, president, you have to do this, or oh, if you're that, you have to do this. Read the numbers next to each item, okay? The 8 items, the 8 issues, and the value, the highest value is the one of most importance to you. Put them in order of the order of importance to you. And when you go in, again, we're going to go through the whole thing. What's your aspiration? What's your reservation? What is your absolute BATNA? And then we're going to sit down and we're going to ask diagnostic questions. Now you know why you're in the room. Let's find out if you're in the room with somebody who can and will negotiate with you. Hopefully that's the case. And you're going to ask diagnostic questions and figure out what is on their list. Because what you might find out is neither one of you cares about one thing. So you can just trade it. Some of us flip-flop could do some trading where we do something with a contingency in the future. Now remember, this is what brings us back. Those were power moves. In fact, if we think about it, what were the power moves? Well, first, the advertising agency was trying to use power of pressure tactics by trying to make us do things by way of the general manager who had been running the place for years and years and years. You could say I used a power move because I made an ally out of a person who was the new honcho. And for the process moves, well, that's what they were trying to do. It's like, hey, let's go out and redo this package design, do endless redos of it, redesigns. And you could say there was definitely appreciative moves going on because I made friends with Jean-Michel and also the ad agency, like they went to the same church, et cetera, et cetera. So, like I said, this was a stick figure one. Yes, it did turn into a multi-million-dollar deal. Keller's, as I retired, as you know, as I said, I retired from that business, sold the business, and of course, Keller's ended up closing their factory, and they're not there anymore. I don't know what they did, but I will tell you this: we won this award. This negotiation, first of all, is taught. This one is being taught at a couple different colleges. We just wrote it up here as the Butterballs negotiation, and we just published it. So it's a pretty cool story. I hope you like that. Okay, that is where I'm going to stop my sharing. Okay, and also turn on my video. Sorry about that. There we are. Hi, there I am. Okay, let's see. It's just about 8 o'clock. Do we have any questions that we want on the recorder? All right. Those of us watching the recording, shoot me an email if any of this makes sense, doesn't make sense, any questions on any of the assignments, due dates on assignments, veracity of the assignments, anything you got. And I'm going to turn off the recorder right now. So let's see. Turning this off. Stopping the recording. Thanks.
So,